Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we speak to the Southpaw Outlaw, Serena DeJesus. We talk about how she got into fighting, being an autistic role model, and anime. That is right, she is a weeb and a self-proclaimed one, and very proud of it. We get in a little bit on the anime. I get lost because I'm not into the anime world. I do find it very interesting, and I can see how I would very much fall in that rabbit hole, but I have enough things on my plate that I can't fall in any more rabbit holes. But if you are a weeb and autistic weeb on top of that, you'll love this episode, and you'll love this conversation, and you'll love Serena. Speaking of things you love, we have a newsletter. It comes out twice a week. It has even more fun facts, and you get to find out even more information about our guests. So make sure to go sign up for our newsletter. Until then, here is the Southpaw Outlaw, Serena DeJesus.
How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing okay. I'm feeling my arms extra. I'm doing good for the first month back after a 5-month layoff. So I'm also up here at CSA for a few days training. So little traincation, if you may.
That's not a bad thing. Yeah, you're getting it in, so that's really all that matters.
Mhm. It's nice to change up some scenery here and again. Like, I love where I'm at in Vegas, but I'm not missing that 117-degree heat that they have going on this weekend.
I'm in Texas right now, and yeah, the high today is 105, but they said heat index is north of 109. So, yeah, that's fun.
You all got that humidity. That's the worst part. I don't miss that.
No, yeah, Vegas is very much that dry heat where you're hot, but you're not, I don't know, you're in a dry sauna, but then, you come up to Texas. Luckily, I'm not in Houston. They are way worse and way more humid, but we are definitely humid here in the DFW area.
Yeah, in Vegas, it's pretty much when you know that initial heat blast you get when you open the oven door when you're baking something? It's like all the time. Yes. So that's what it is. And when you're sweating, it's normally too late. You're already dehydrated, because that's why people die in the desert. By the time they're sweating, they're already really dehydrated.
Yeah, it's funny. My brother actually moved up to Canada, and he was talking to me today. He said, well, even up there, he's like, once I start, if I trip over something small and stupid, or I am out there in the garden and I'm, forgetting something, I immediately will go inside just in case of anything. And then he's trying to tell me how to be down here. And I'm like, I live here still. I understand. I'm not overheating. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, I just turn amphibious until the sun goes down.
That makes sense. But here, the sun doesn't go down till 9-ish, and then so, depending what time you go to bed, you don't have much time to do anything.
It's about 8-ish, so I just hang out a bit, and then, I don't know, I don't really go out in the daytime anyways unless it's a practice, so I might go see a movie and then bam, go to bed. I've seen, God, I'm trying to think. I saw the new Transformers movie actually with my family. It was one last movie outing because they left Las Vegas. They were with me for 6 years out here, and then they decided they needed to move back to the East Coast because as much as I love Vegas, it's not really meant for families. The housing prices have kind of gotten out of control. The healthcare is horrible, surprisingly. With all the, Californians coming over, I'm surprised our healthcare hasn't gotten much better. The colleges, not so great for my one little brother, and just services for my little sister weren't great either. So they're going to Connecticut. So they found a place that has great healthcare. They made that drive before, because I'm originally from Philadelphia, and they drove all the way out from Philadelphia to come and be with me for a bit, but it's time for them to go find some better place to live, and at least I get to visit somewhere that's nice and cool. I can deal with the snow, but not have to shovel it finally. That was the worst part of living in Philadelphia, was all the fucking snow, part of my language.
You're fine, yeah. Fuck snow. I wouldn't want to deal with that. As much as I always, toy with the idea of maybe wanting to move to like Colorado or something, dealing with the snow on a regular basis is not something like I don't need to be shoveling. I don't need to be sweeping off my car, all that stuff that you have to do to like, because you know how many people, well, I'm sure you've done it as well, either put a blanket or a piece of cardboard over your windshield so that way in the morning you don't have to worry about it. You just kind of pull it off and then you're good to go. Yeah.
I've even had to jump out of my living room window one time. We had a snowstorm that came past my knees. So the entire city of Philadelphia was shut down, but my dad, who's been an RN as long as I've been alive, well, there's really no off times for nurses. So I went out there. I couldn't open the living room door, so I'm like, whoops. So I went out the living room window. It took me 3 hours to shovel everything. And it wasn't even that big of a place. It was just a walkway, you know, a little path out of the house that we had, you know. It wasn't even that huge, and yet it was just because it was that much snow. So I'm doing like the Mike Tyson go, like my back, because that was a lot. I never want to fucking deal with that again. Like, thankfully Mount Charleston exists, so when I want to go see snow, I, you know, take an hour drive out there and then be like, bye, I don't have to deal with you again ever.
Yeah. So when did you leave Philadelphia?
I left Philadelphia in 2016, so it was kind of the beginning of kind of my more nomadic lifestyle. I was still an amateur. So in 2014, I started coming out to Vegas to train and everything, and then I would train in Vegas, and have fight camps, fight somebody, then go back to Philadelphia. But over time, it kind of got expensive. But what ended up happening is I got invited to Misha Tate's fight camp because she was prepping for Holly Holm. So prior to that, she actually took me out to dinner, and I was just a 3-0 amateur at the time. You know, I'm friends at this time with Roxanne Modafferi, who still is my mentor in this game. And she knew, I guess I'm kind of a, you know, Roxy's kind of a litmus test for if someone's a nice person or not. I don't know, but like Misha took her shine to me. She took me out for dinner. I'm like, what can this 3-0 amateur give back to this woman who's going to fight for the belt in the UFC sooner than later? So before, you know, my brain caught up with my mouth, I'm like, hey, Misha, if you need a southpaw for any of your camps, you let me know. So cue January, and she invited me, and I'm just like, okay, beats being in the snow in Philadelphia. So I was with her camp for a week. I got to meet Nick DeLee, who's fighting for Combate Global sooner than later. I think if it's not this weekend, it is next. Yeah, it's this weekend. So guys, tune in for that one. And then I met her husband, and then, you know, was hanging with Misha in her house, and got dumped around by her a lot of times. And pretty much what she used to choke on me is she pretty much set up almost flawlessly on Holly. So that was nice to see. But at the time I was watching that, I got an invite from Andrea Lee, who was still an Invicta at the time, to come train with her because she was fighting Sarah D'Aleo, who was a bantamweight but then dropped to flyweight, and Andrea was going to fight her. So she wanted all the bantamweights she could get her hands on, be they amateur or pro. So I was out in Shreveport for 3 weeks. And then Roxy, my buddy, was fighting on the same Invicta card that was in Las Vegas that Andrea was fighting. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go to Vegas again, you know, train a little bit, find a fight, go home, everything's going to be normal again. Except months passed, I couldn't find a fight, and in Philadelphia I was struggling at the time to find girls who were serious enough to fight and not be what I called pad princesses, where they, you know, hit the pads for social media and look all cool and shit and just don't actually fight. And that was what I was running into. So I decided, you know, after talking to my family, just to stay out in Vegas because I was renting a room in a fighter house, and I was doing all right then. Me and Roxy became roommates for a while, and then my family came. I stayed with them for a little bit, and now renting a place with a friend, you know, having a good time. I'm missing my family. I always did, but I have a job to do. And unfortunately, Connecticut, as much as of a beautiful state that is, not really well known for its MMA. So I can't really risk leaving what I got here in Las Vegas for my family. But at least I get to see them more often than I did. As an amateur, I could only see them twice a year tops. But now as a pro, I have a little bit more money to kind of bounce back and forth and see them. So not a goodbye necessarily. It's just to see you later for my family.
Right, exactly. You're just seeing them down the road.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, let's go to back to the beginning. What is your earliest memory of martial arts?
Okay, so this is fun. So I'm a giant nerd. So I love anime, I love video games, so I was all into Power Rangers, Sailor Moon, Tekken. I still play Tekken to this day. And then my reward for behaving in school and everything is every Friday I got to go to the video store with my dad. So I got anime before everybody even knew what anime was. I may not sound like a hipster in that regard, but I'm getting like 80s anime at age 5 and just enjoying it. So my first anime was Record of Level 4. So yeah, it's like an 80s anime right there. And my dad would be getting UFC tapes because my dad, he served, he was infantry, and he did a lot of traditional martial arts. Like, he did Wing Chun. He was very much into judo for a while, then moved up to kendo. Like, he wanted to experience it all. And he put in that tape. I came down one night. He was watching Paul Herrera versus Gary Goodridge. So that whole transition into that nasty-ass crucifix that just murdered Herrera looked like something my favorite fighting character, King, from Tekken would do. Because they had a sequence where he did ground and pound and then he did arm bars. So I'm like, oh my God, this is real. This is not like something that was, on TV or my video games. So I became a fan. So I'm sitting on my dad's lap, watching promotions like IFL, Pride FC, Elite XC, then WEC Wreckage as I got older and stuff, Strike Force, and then on top of the UFC, and then going on from there. So when I turned 18, I tried to be athletic. I went, as an artist, I went from having zero motor control, tripping over my own 2 feet, being in occupational therapy in school till I was in middle school, and then, I played softball, but, I didn't get into any colleges, unfortunately. So I was just going to college, and I knew if I did that and working, I'd go nuts. So I found this local gym that taught Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. Sadly, it's not around anymore. Like I said, small gym. And I went there to be more of that intelligent fan. I didn't want to be that, the female equivalent of that guy going like, twist his dick. I didn't want to be that person. I loved fighting, so I wanted to at least be an educated fan. But then I just loved it. My first, jiu-jitsu tournaments turned into my first Muay Thai fights. I flew to Thailand and trained out there in 13, excuse me. Then I went to Vegas in 2014 and met Roxy. And, I've gained friends. I've felt really good about myself. I'm happy in what I do. And then, my amateur fights just turned into my pro fights. And I just want to keep the ball rolling from there and just be a good role model for other people who are autistic and people who feel like they're just different from the norm overall. Because I didn't have an autistic role model growing up. So I kind of want to be the one I never had, if that makes any sense.
No, it's true. I love that, and I wanted to get into that later because, like you said, there's not as many. We're learning far more about autism in the past years than we ever did before, and we're putting a lot more attention on it, which is great. And we're learning what the spectrum is, and like you said, when you were growing up, there wasn't really role models for people with autism. There was just like these characters on TV that were just slightly different, and somehow like that's supposed to be this weird character on TV is supposed to be your role model. And it's like, well, we're represented, but in what way, right? So the fact that you are, very open about it and you are very wanting to be that spokesperson, I really love that. I was really curious, what has been some of the the fan responses you've gotten from other autistic people since you've been so open about it and said you do, in fact, want to be their role model?
I've had a lot of private messages from other autistics thanking me for kind of being out there and talking about it. I can only speak for myself and my experiences